Florida Governor Ron DeSantis joins me. Good morning, Governor. Congratulations. Most of the talking heads say you, quote, won, close quote, the debate last night. I hope you feel that way about it.
Yeah, no, it was good. I'll tell you, it was a little bittersweet being in Tuscaloosa, just given how Florida State, our undefeated Florida State team, didn't make the college football playoff. So but all the Crimson Tide fans here have been very nice about it because I guess they're used to going pretty much every year.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate. That was just unfair, and that's going to end next year. Governor, I want to begin very straightforward question. I'm a graduate of Harvard College. You're a graduate of Harvard Law School. I want the president of Harvard, President Gay, to resign based upon her testimony. Do you have a position on whether or not she ought to go?
100%. And I think what this has revealed is the rot and the sickness that's been festering inside higher education for a long time. And you understand that, Hugh. A lot of your listeners do. But I think now the broader public is seeing this, and I think that they're appalled by what was going on. And I would put in a plug for Florida and say how we've done it differently. If you look at how, say, Ben Sasse, who's the president of the University of Florida, has handled the post-October 7th matters, much different, moral clarity, things that you can be proud of. And we need universities that are going to serve a function of pursuing truth and preparing students to be citizens of the Republic. They should not be these hotbeds of anti-Americanism and anti-Semitism, but that's what they've become. And I think back to my time, and I joke when I'm out on the campaign trail speaking with Republican primary voters. I say, listen, I'm one of the few people that have gone through both Harvard and Yale and came out more conservative than when I went in. That's not easy to do, and everyone acknowledged they all kind of get it. But back in my day, you would not have had, I think, this level of vitriol like you have now. It has gotten much worse.
Governor, in 1996, the Congress passed something called the Salem Amendment, which you may recall. It barred law schools that would not allow the ROTC to recruit there from receiving federal funds. Would you be in favor of cutting off, and notwithstanding any other law provision in the supplemental, cutting off funds to universities like Harvard, Penn, and MIT that have not taken action against the anti-Semitic assaults that have occurred on their campus?
100%. Yeah, it's interesting. When I commissioned in the Navy, they were doing battle over the amendment with the recruiting because Harvard had barred the recruiters. They were in litigation over it, and Harvard, in the schools that actually won a victory, they eventually got overturned 9-0. So I kind of lived through all of that with that. But yes, it's totally appropriate to do that. And if you're not doing that, then you're essentially subsidizing this kind of behavior. And it's bad enough some of the stuff that you see with these university presidents. But then you talk, and I know, look, I've got a lot of friends down in Florida who have kids that are in college in different parts of the country. And these students are scared to even walk on campus now. Some of them are being chased around. This is totally unacceptable in the United States of America.
So, Governor, I expect last night's debate will be the last RNC-sanctioned debate, at least until after New Hampshire, and probably not until then. I don't know if they're going to drop their rules concerning unsanctioned debates. If they do, would you and Ambassador Haley be willing to come on and sit down for a conversation at length on this program?
100%. And I do think we are going to have debate. I think we're going to have a debate in Iowa, and I think we're going to have a debate in New Hampshire. I don't know that the RNC is going to put it on, but I don't think that they're going to block it. And we need to do that in those two early states. I think it's very important. Hopefully they'll raise the thresholds for qualifying. And it may end up just being a one-on-one debate. And, of course, if the former president is willing to show up and debate, and then doing three, I think would be really, really good. But it's an important part of the process.
Call me, I'll show up. I try and be fair about this. Now, I want to ask you about the enduring appeal of former President Trump.
You guys did good. I mean, when NBC did it, there was a lot of gnashing of teeth amongst conservatives because they don't view NBC as necessarily, of course, being in the side of Republicans. But it was a substantive debate, and there was no gotcha questions. They were all just good questions and allowed us to articulate our plans for the country.
I thought Eliana Johnson and Megyn Kelly and Elizabeth Vargas did a fine job last night, although Mr. Ramaswamy did do his normal thing and was rebuked for it appropriately. But I'd like to get down to the two, maybe three people if the former president shows up. But let's talk about these polls. The former president stays very far ahead of you. And I know that those polls can shift. You've got momentum. You've got Governor Reynolds. You've got Bob Vander Plaats. You've got an organization. Ambassador Haley has her story. But to what do you attribute the enduring appeal of the former president to three-quarters of the party? Maybe some of that will chip away, but there's something there. What do you attribute that to?
Well, first, I think you did is right to point out, on the ground in the early states, it's a different picture than what it is in some of these national surveys, because I think there's campaigning going on and people are more engaged, and they're going to continue to get more engaged. And I think people are going to be very pleased with what happens in Iowa and beyond. But nationally, look, you can trace it back to the Alvin Bragg and the subsequent indictments. You have Republican voters that see how Donald Trump was treated when he was president with the Russia collusion hoax, how the media treated him, and now they see a case like Alvin Bragg, which is a total farce, and then they see Jack Smith, the Justice Department, which is very politicized, going after, and I think it's been a kind of a rally around him, and I think you can trace that in the surveys. Now, if you look deeper into that, I do think that he's got a hardcore base of support, but I think a lot of that are people that like his policies, they like him, but they are willing to go a different direction. And you're seeing that in some of the early states, and I think you're going to continue to see it. But as we now come in, we're in December of 2023, we're going to turn the corner and get into the election year. The question is we can all agree that we need to end weaponization. We can all agree that we need to clean house, and I will do that. The question is, who's the best person to be our standard bearer to both win and then to deliver on all these different things? And I think that's a different analysis, and I think you're going to start seeing more and more voters go through that analysis as we get into the election year.
Now, Governor, you mentioned former Senator Ben Sasse. When you had a big choice to make, you picked Ben Sasse, one of the most qualified individuals in America to run an institution as significant and as large as the University of Florida. Do you think that is an example of the kind of person you would bring, for example, to Justice, the Department of Defense, the Department of State? And if so, would you put out a list of the people that you would populate your, not get promising jobs, but look, here's a list of 25 people, and I expect to call them all and ask them to serve in some position?
So I think one good example of that is my Surgeon General in Florida, Joseph Ladapo, who is really the anti-Fauci. He was speaking out against Fauciism very early. We brought him in. Media has gone after him relentlessly, and he just stands his ground. And he's been proven right on all this stuff relating to COVID and all this stuff. But that, I think, in those positions, Justice, FBI, Defense, the ones that if you are a conservative reformer, you are going to get blowback. The key is going to be somebody that has the intestinal fortitude to know official Washington's not going to like you. They don't want to see reform at Justice. They don't want to see reform at those places. So of course, you got to have a certain level of competence. You got to be smart in your subject matter, legal issues, military issues, what have you. But you got to have that backbone. You got to know that the incoming is going to come at you, and you just got to view that as positive feedback. I will say on defense, I don't think it's good to do these retired generals like Mattis and Austin. I think you need somebody that's got good executive experience, that understands the military, but has a little bit more distance, because I think there's a lot of reform we're going to need to do at the flag and general officer ranks. There's going to be a lot of things we're going to need to do to change how the military is working internally in terms of getting rid of some of the woke ideology and the social stuff. And I think you're going to have somebody who hasn't necessarily been serving with all the top brass, for the last 20 years.
Now, Governor, I know some of the retired superstars in the military a little bit, like Admiral McRaven and General McChrystal and Admiral Stavridis. I think we're in a position where deep selection is going to happen. You're a Navy veteran. You've been in the combat. You know that means going past the guys and gals on the front bench and finding the best person available. Are you willing to do that?
Oh, yeah, 100%. You got to.
All right. Now, moving forward onto the Department of Justice. It came up last night, but it didn't get enough of a discussion. I am an alumni of the Department of Justice. It was not political under Bill Smith. It was not politicized under Ed Meese. It is wholly politicized now. How do you fix that, Governor?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, one, we're going to have an attorney general that's going to set the tone and do it. I think you need to move parts of justice outside of Washington, D.C. I mean, for example, put the Civil Rights Division in Oklahoma or Arkansas. I think that will draw different types of people. I don't think the very partisan D.C. lawyers would be willing to move and go out there. So you're going to have an opportunity to have some significant turnover. But it can't just be, yes, you need a strong attorney general. Yes, you need strong deputies, and you have to fill those positions. You have to send those nominations on January 3rd of 2025 when the new Senate is sworn in. You got to be ready to go, and there's no substitute for that. But the big problem with justice is the career folks are very partisan, and the media like to say, well, their career, they're not political. No, the fact that their career, that doesn't mean that they don't have an agenda. It just means they're not political appointees. But 99% of the political donations from rank-and-file people of DOJ go to Democrats. So how can you say that somehow it's not politicized? So it is. So I think the problem is much deeper than just the upper echelon, and we're going to have to get in there and do something about it. But I agree with you, Hugh. Even when I was a special assistant, 15 years ago, under, I think, W was president, this was all very professional. You had a lot of confidence. FBI, DOJ, as somebody that was not a big fan of some federal government agencies like the IRS and Department of Education, it was defense, it was Intel, it was DOJ, FBI that I looked to as being the ones that you can count on. And that's changed. And we've seen them abuse their power. We've seen their agenda. And we have got to end the weaponization. We've got to get back to a single standard of justice.
Now, I want to close by talking about Jack Smith. I think that the appointment of Jack Smith is a horrendous abuse of power by Merrick Garland. We should not have taken a prosecutor who bought the McDonald case and had it thrown out by the Supreme Court to do this. Do you agree with me on that? And I know you know the Manhattan case is a joke, and I think you think the Atlanta case is a joke. But I believe the D.C. case, I don't know much about the obstruction case, but the D.C. case is a joke, and I think Jack Smith gives off, to me, the air of fanaticism. What do you think, Governor?
He's an overzealous prosecutor, Hugh, and he has a record of that, and you're right. He did the Bob McDonnell. He got reversed on that. He doesn't have a good track record. It was a huge mistake. And here's the thing about the J6 stuff. You had J6. They impeached Trump. He was acquitted in the Senate. Then there was nothing. There was no criminal investigation at that point. They only started the criminal investigation like a year and a half later because Congress was goading them into doing it.